So guys, my name is Bhupender. I have like 10 years, more than 10 years of technical experience. I have worked on different Azure technologies. So I train people on Azure fundamentals, on Azure administration, on Azure architect designing, Sentinel, on Azure security, DevOps. I also have experience of some on-premise technologies, right? I take care of some on-premise technologies as well. I take care of Windows Server Active Directory. I take care of networking in the on-premise as well. So that's a basic introduction from mine. So I am a Microsoft certified trainer, so it takes care of multiple things of Azure Architect as well as Active Directory and networking from on-premise. Now, in this particular course, we will talk about these things. So first of all, before we go with the slide, let's talk about a bit of technology here, right? So basically, what is cloud computing? So before we understand Azure, we just need to understand what is cloud computing. Traditionally, what the organizations were doing, and guys, I will give you a question and the answer round. I will be allocating you good amount of time to ask your queries. Whatever we are going to discuss today technically, I'll be giving you ample amount of time to discuss your technical queries. Only one request from my side is, if in case you have any technical query, please make a note of it, right? Because we have so many participants today, so it would be a bit difficult to answer all the queries at the same time. So just keep on making a note of your query, and I'll be giving you ample amount of time so that we can have a discussion onto your technical queries. Normally, when we do training, usually when we do training day in and day out, when we do training, we allow participants to ask the query then and there. As soon as a query comes to their mind, so they can ask the query then and there. Reason being, usually in a training batch, we have like 10 to 25 participants, right? So batch size is around 10 to 25. Yeah. But today probably we'll have more people, so it would become a bit difficult to answer all the queries in a single go. So I'll be giving you a question and the answer now. Okay. So first we will talk about what is cloud computing, right? Why is cloud computing necessary? So what was happening traditionally organizations used to have their on-premise infrastructure. When we say on-premise means they used to build their data centers within the organization. They used to define a dedicated place. If I give you a very layman terms example, let's say we have a home. In home we have got a kitchen. So kitchen is a dedicated place where we need to cook food, right? Similarly, within the organizations on-premise, within the organization's premises, organizations used to book a dedicated place where they will be putting all their servers, all their application server, all their database servers, all their DNS servers, all their networking servers, all their Active Directory servers, and so on. So that place they used to call it as data center. Right? So an organization can have a small data center, can have a medium-sized data center, can have a large data center, tier 1 data center, tier 2 data center. So a lot of types of data center. Right? So that is what the on-premise data centers were. All the organizations were hosting everything inside their on-premise data centers. What happened then? With the on-premise data center, there were some physical obligations. There were some physical limitations, right? So what were the limitations? Now let's say I have got my data center in India. Maybe let's say somewhere in Bangalore. Bangalore is a city in India, right? If anyone has joined outside the India, just wanted to inform, Bangalore is nothing, it's a city in India. So let's say we have got a data center in Bangalore, somewhere in Bangalore. Now, if I need to host my application servers, where will my application servers be hosted? Inside Bangalore, inside my data center. Now, when the users will try to access those application, request will be going to that application server. So I can easily entertain the business which I'm getting from the Indian-based customers. Maybe I have some Indian-based clients, some Indian-based customers. I can easily entertain, I can easily manage them. But what about if one of the UK clients says, hey, can you host my application server? I say, yes, I can definitely host your application server. But would it be feasible to host the application server of UK based customers in Bangalore? Whenever the users from UK will try to access the application server, requests will be coming every time to Bangalore. It will take good amount of time. There will be latency, high latency, low performance. It's not feasible. Plus, some governments have got some rules and regulations which the organizations needs to abide. For example, if there is a UK-based organization, they will have to go with the UK-based federal laws. And maybe UK law says that whenever you are hosting anything which is related to the users, they has to be in the UK physical premises. They needs to be in the UK region, within the UK geographical boundaries. So obviously I would not be able to host it in Bangalore. So maybe I got a client and client is saying, hey, I'm ready to give you some huge business, but my only condition is you need to host, you need to deploy, you need to install everything in the UK region, within the UK physical boundaries. Now the physical obligation is, physical limitation is, I have got my data center in Bangalore. How can I do it? That is the reason the concept of the cloud computing came into the picture. There are big cloud providers like Microsoft, right? Microsoft Cloud is Azure, like AWS. It's an Amazon cloud, like GCP. It's a Google Cloud. So they say, hey, we have got data centers across the globe. You can use our data center and you can host that into the UK region. Maybe 2 months down the line, if I'm getting a customer from Germany, they say, hey, we have got data center in Germany as well. You can join from Germany as well. You can join from Germany as well, right? So that is the reason cloud computing came into the picture. That is the reason this cloud computing came into the picture. Now, what are the benefits we are getting with the cloud computing? These are the benefits we get with the cloud computing. We can get high availability. We can get high availability. Now, let me explain you something here, a very basic thing regarding the high availability, right? So we'll talk about these things, these technical things. Oh, I opened calculator by mistake. I need to open MS Paint. Okay. Now let's say I have got a VM number one. VM is nothing but a virtual machine, maybe a server, maybe a Windows Server 2016 server, into which I have deployed one application. It's my application server, right? It is my application server. Now, guys, I would like to ask a question from all of you. This is my application server. Now, am I redundant? Is my application server highly available? Have I achieved the high availability as of now? Anyone? Guys, please tell me, please share your inputs. Am I highly available?
Not as of now.
No, not as of now, right? Yeah. So we have got the response from many people, and absolutely correct. We are not highly redundant. So how can we become highly redundant? Can I say if I put VM2, maybe let's say same operating system, and let's say I install the same application, and let's say I install the same application. Can I say now I am highly redundant?
Better. No, this time.
Sorry.
But it has to be under load balance, right?
Yeah, we have to do a load balance. Yeah, we need to distribute the application load. Absolutely, we need to do the load balance. But can I say that we are highly redundant if we are using a load balancer? Means even if in case one of the machine goes down, the application is running on the other machine as well. The application is running on the other machine as well, right?
Correct.
So better this time.
Yeah, so basically we have achieved the high availability. So maybe I say if I put them behind a load balancer, maybe load balancer has got VM1 as well as VM2, on which both the application, in which the same application is running. So even if in case one of my machine is down, can I access the application? Absolutely. Application is still available. It is still running in VM number 2. So basically, to a certain extent, we have achieved the high availability. Now, high availability also has a different levels, I would say. Whether you want to achieve the high availability only on a data center level, on a region level, on a rack level, so different levels of high availability is there. But yes, to a certain extent, we have achieved the high availability. So basically, what we can do, we can achieve high availability with the help of guys, just a small request. Those who do not have a query, or once you have shared your input, please put your mute. So once you have done your input part, please stay on mute. Thank you very much. So basically what we can say here, we have achieved the high availability, right? Now, then talks about scalability. So what is scalability? Scalability is like right now my VM number one on which VM 2016 on which application number one is running, right? Now to this VM we have given 2 CPU and 8 GB RAM. Obviously, depending upon how much resources we have allocated, this machine would be able to handle a certain amount of load. This machine would be able to handle a certain amount of load. It would not be able to handle all the load. If application load will keep on increasing, the CPU will start rising. It will reach to a point where it would not be able to handle more load. But what about if I give it 4 CPU and 16 GB RAM? Or what about I give it 8 CPU and 64 GB RAM? Or what about I give it 32 CPU and 256 GB RAM? I'm scaling it up. I'm scaling it up. I am giving more resources to the same machine. I am scaling it up. Would I be able to handle more load? Absolutely, I would be able to handle more load, right? I would be able to handle more. So that is how we would be able to handle more load. So we can become scalable. Elasticity. So one method is to the same machine I'm adding more resources. Second thing I could have done is I have VM1 on which this application is running. Maybe I can have VM2 on which I'll run the same application. VM3 on which I'll run the same application. VM4 on which I'll run the same application. So what is happening now? Same application now is running on multiple machines. Obviously, it would be all the machines would be able to handle more load as compared to the load which was handled alone by VM number one. So what we have done, it is elastic in nature. We can add many machines. Agility is how quickly we can respond. So the resources are agile in nature, or the hardware is also, the resources are agile in nature, right? Within a couple of clicks, we would be able to deploy the resources. Within a couple of clicks, we would be able to deprovision things. So they will be agile in nature. Fault tolerant. The hardware that is deployed can tolerate a certain amount of fault. So we have got the fault tolerances. Right? So basically, these are nothing but the benefits of going with the same. These are nothing but the benefits of going with the same. Disaster recovery, right? We can achieve disaster recovery. Now, what is disaster recovery? Let's say I am deploying VM number one on which we have deployed application number one, and we deployed this in South India. In Azure, we have got regions. In Azure, there is a concept of regions, right? We will talk about this concept in a couple of minutes from now. So we have got 60 plus regions across the globe, which is covering like 140 countries across the globe, right? So we have got a lot of regions. Now, I deployed my VM number one in South India. So VM number one is running in South India region inside one of its data centers. What will happen if the South India region may go down? Maybe due to some big electric failure, due to some natural disaster, the entire data center, the couple of data centers, the entire region can go down. If that will happen, my VM number one will be down. My application will be down. If this is a business critical application and if the application is going down, we may lose huge amount of revenue. What can we do? Maybe I'm saying the Microsoft region can go down, but I cannot afford my application to go down. I'm saying if South India is going down, I would like to get VM number one up and running. Let's say
VM2 will.
I would like to run VM number one up and running in Hong Kong region. Right? Maybe somewhere in Hong Kong region, I would like to get up and running. Like, so I think one of the ma'am was trying to say, so maybe VM2 is running. But what I was trying to say is, let's say we have VM1, VM2, VM3. We have multiple machines inside which all of us, we are running the application number one. Right? inside all the machines for high availability, we were running application number 1. But let's say all of them were running in South India. Let's say all of them were running in South India, right? So when this situation will
VM2 will take care of now. Sorry,
No,
sir.
we-
VM2 will take care of that, no?
no. Unfortunately, VM2 would not be able to take care of. See, we have
It needs
got,
to dynamically switch to the region.
So they should be in different location.
yeah, there should be different location. We have multiple machines. We were highly available, but only if VM1 was going down. But now the condition has changed. Machine is not going down. Region is going down. As a result of that, data centers are going down. As a result of that, machines are going down. And since South India region is going down, so all the machines will be down. Right? Now we need a region. Now we need a different region where we can get the machine up and running. So that is what the disaster recovery is.
So it needs to dynamically switch to another region.
Yeah, it automatically doesn't do it. We need to initiate a failover. There is a concept of failover. There is a
Is there a
concept of,
possibility to dynamically switch
It's
to
a
another
region failover, right?
yeah, it's a region failover. Absolutely correct. It's a region failover. We can achieve it with the help of Azure site recovery. There is a concept of site
Yeah,
recovery.
the,
With
the
that,
same VM we have configured in multiple regions. Whenever South Indian region failed, so automatically it will fail over to Hong Kong region. That's correct,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Gentleman is absolutely correct.
Thanks.
So that's how we
Yeah.
can do it.
Don't we have high availability so that it will automatically fail over to the next region instead of doing it manually?
Yeah, we can
Not
achieve
like
it.
that.
We can achieve it.
It should.
We can achieve it automatically as well. There are ways of achieving it automatically.
It will switch. It will switch to another VM1 in another region, so that availability will be available.
So usually when you are configuring the disaster recovery, it doesn't do it automatically. There are ways of achieving it automatically as well, but usually it's a manual process. Okay, so that's how we would be able to do it. It has got a global reach. As I was telling this concept, there is a concept of regions. So what is region? Region is nothing but you can say group of data centers. Region is nothing but group of data centers spread across the globe. So Azure has got a global reach. It has got regions across the globe, 60 plus regions everywhere. US, Canada, Germany, Middle East, Africa, India, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. Right? So it has got a global reach. Customer latency capabilities. If my application server is in India, if my users are in India, obviously I will try to put the application server as close as possible to the users. As close as possible to the predictive cost concentrations. There is a tool. There is a tool with the name pricing calculator. There is a tool with the name pricing calculator. So you can use this tool, and with the help of this tool, you can find out, with the help of this tool, you would be able to find out that how much we have to pay. So if I am trying to create a VM number 1 of size, maybe I'll say 4 CPU and 16 GB RAM, and I'm trying to put it in South India region, right? I'm trying to put it in South India region, and I'm putting it as Windows Server 2016. So I would like to find out how much we need to pay before we actually deploy it. So with the help of this tool, we can find out the cost of a particular resource before we actually go ahead and deploy it. Okay. So that is how we would be able to figure it out. That is how we would be able to figure it out. Any questions, any queries, anything guys
Yeah.
regarding this?
Bhupendra, I have a question. So if a regional level failover, it's not a automatic failover, right?
It
So
is not
if
an
any
automatic
manual failure, yeah, if it is a manual failover means we have some time delay will happen, right?
Absolutely.
failover.
There will be some delay. Absolutely. Now, how can we
Okay.
remove that delay? How can we remove the delay? There is a service in Azure called as Service Health. There is a service in Azure called as Service Health. With the help of Service Health, you can create the
Bhupendra.
alerts, right? So we can
Okay.
create the
Bhupendra.
alert. Yeah, ma'am, just allow me a moment. I'll come to your query. So
Now, who will declare it is a natural? I mean, it's a disaster. Like Azure will declare it's a disaster so that
absolutely, absolutely.
each and
So-
every customer can do a failover.
Yeah, so basically if you want that, if in case Azure region is going down, you would like to get an update, you would like to get an alert, so you have to use the service. Now if any Azure service will go down, any Azure service within one region, there can be a lot of services, virtual machine, database, network, right? Lot of services, containers, Kubernetes, function app, logic app, traffic manager, load balancer, a lot of services are there. Now, if any particular service is going down, then also you can get an alert. If the entire region is going down, then also you can get an alert. So you need to use this particular service.
Yeah, Bhupendra, for example, if I have a two VMs in same region,
Mhm.
okay, so that time also automatic failover is there, that time also manual failover only the option.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm
my
unable to
question
get
is
you.
different.
I'm
Yeah,
unable to get
my
you.
question is like as I have two VMs, okay, in same regions.
Yeah, so sir, I'm so sorry to interrupt. As I mentioned, I'll be giving you ample amount of time for the question and the answer. Let me cover the agenda for today. And if you
Okay,
can
okay.
park your question for a while, we will discuss it in a detailed manner. So in the question
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
answer
sure.
round, we will discuss it in a very, very detailed manner, right?
Yeah, sure.
All right, guys. So anyone, I'm sure a couple of you will have definitely have some questions in the mind. So we will definitely discuss all your queries, but just need some time for it, right? Okay. Kavita, I'll come to your question as well. In a couple of minutes, I'll come to your question, right? Is there any limit
Okay, fine.
data center in a particular region? Actually, your question is not complete, I believe. Any limit data center in a particular region means?
Yeah.
Limit of what? What limit are you trying to refer here? How many VMs we can have in one region? Okay. So how many VMs we can have in one region depends upon your subscription. There are different types of subscription. Depending upon that, this number can be defined. Depending upon that, this number can be defined, that how many VMs we can have in the subscription, right? So I'll show that to you in a couple of minutes, that how and from where we would be able to see it. So this is the now we can also achieve security. Obviously, we are trying to deploy the resources. We would also try to secure our network. So first we need to create the network, and then we need to talk about the network security. Network security can be achieved via multiple means. There is something called as firewall, which we all know. There is something called as DDoS, distributed denial of service. There is something called as NSG. There is something called as ASG. There is something called as service endpoint. Right? There is something called as private endpoint connection. So a lot of things are there. There is something called as security center. So there are a lot of things by which we would be able to achieve the security. So these things we would be able to achieve. Now there are two more concepts. It's a very basic concept. Economies of scale. There are two models, CapEx and OpEx. What does it mean? When you are building your data center, when any organization is building their data center, they are following the CapEx model. They are following the capital expenditure model. Capital expenditure model means they are spending huge amount of dollars in order to build their data center. Building a data center is not an easy task. Building a data center requires huge amount of money. Right? Building a data center requires huge amount of money, huge amount of efforts, huge amount of planning. Everything is required. Building a data center. So when we are going with the data center model, we are following the CapEx model. We are spending huge amount of dollars, which we would be able to slowly and gradually we would be able to recover from that amount. When we are going with the cloud, in cloud, we can go follow the operational expenditure model. If I say in layman terms, I'm sure most of you would be using the postpaid broadband or maybe postpaid mobile connection or any postpaid service, maybe electricity or something, right? So these are the OpEx models. Whatever we are using, whatever electricity we are using, we just need to pay the bill for the same. Or whatever data we are using, we just need to pay for the broadband only for that. So that is the operational expenditure. Similarly, if I talk about in terms of cloud, whatever resources you will deploy in Microsoft data center, only you need to pay the bill for the same. Only you need to pay the bill for the same. So we can follow the OpEx model. Okay. Now, before we go further into slide, let me show you some architecture of Azure. So this is what we will discuss today. So in Azure, there are two types of architecture. One is we have got the physical architecture, and one is we have got the logical architecture. So whenever we have any technology, every technology has some kind of an architectures. So these are the two types of architecture we have. So let's talk about physical architecture. Now, what is physical architecture? As we discussed a couple of minutes back, at the very top we have got regions. Now, region is nothing but group of data centers. Group of data centers. In every region, we will have minimum 2 data center, and we can have multiple data centers. Minimum there will be 2, and we can have multiple data centers inside a region. We have got 60 plus regions which is giving services across 40 plus countries, 140 plus countries. 60 plus regions which is giving services across 140 countries, more than 140 countries. Name of some regions are East US, West US, South India, UK South, and so on. There are many regions. Okay? These are the name of some. After regions, we have got something called as availability zones. After regions, we have got something called as availability zones. Now we need to remember 3 points regarding availability zone. Point number 1, availability zones are not available in all the regions. How many regions we have got? 60 plus. Out of 60 plus regions, availability zones are only available in 14 to 15 regions. Okay? Approximately around 14 to 15 regions, availability zones would be available. Now the question that may strike your mind is, how will we identify which region contain availability zone and which region do not contain availability zone? Very simple. I can go to any search engine, maybe let's say Google. I can just type Azure regions. We want to get some information about the Azure regions. I type Azure regions. I'll click on choose the right region for you. Now it will show me a Microsoft link. If I'll scroll down a bit, I would be able to see the map of the entire globe. This is nothing but the map of the entire globe. In this particular map, we are able to see that there are a lot of blue circles, right? There are a lot of blue circles. Let me share this link as well in the chat window. So these blue circles are nothing. In data center, we'll be having VM. Absolutely, we will have VMs inside the data center. Absolutely, Kavita. Right? So basically, these blue circles are nothing but the regions across the globe. So we have got so many regions. Now, on these blue circles, I'm sure all of you are able to see that there are certain blue circles which contain white dot inside it. For example, this region, Canada Central, this region, East US 2, this region, Southeast Asia, this region, South Africa North. So there are certain regions which have got white dot inside it. These regions are the ones which contains availability zone inside it. These regions are the one which contains availability zone. So can we figure it out easily that which region contain availability zone and which region do not contain availability zone? Yes, we can easily figure it out. Point number 2. What is the benefit of having an availability zone? With the help of availability zone, we can achieve better redundancy. We can achieve better redundancy. So we can achieve better redundancy with the help of availability zone. Now, how can we achieve the better redundancy? We'll talk about that maybe during the training sessions. So there is something called as availability set. There is something called as availability zone. Okay? So with the help of them, we can achieve better redundancy. Point number 3, any region. So how many regions we have got? 60 plus regions. Out of 60 plus regions, only 14 to 15 regions contains availability zone. Let's say East US is one of those 14 regions. East US is one of the region which contain availability zone. Any region that contain availability zones will have 3 zones. It will have zone 1, it will have zone 2, it will have zone. So any region that contain availability zone will have 3 zones inside it. Zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Right? So that is how the availability zone is. After availability zone, we will have data centers. After availability zone, we will have data centers. So every region will have minimum 2 and can have multiple data centers. Every region can have minimum 2 or can have multiple data centers. And in every data center, we can have multiple. In every data center, we can have multiple, right? So that is how the physical architecture of the Azure will look. That is how the physical architecture of the Azure will look. Now we'll talk about the logical architecture. We'll talk about the logical architecture, right? So what is logical architecture? In logical architecture, before we talk about logical architecture, how do we start the journey with Azure? Let's say I need to send an email to someone. I need to send an email to someone. So obviously, if I need to send an email to someone, I want to send an email using the Gmail services, what do I need to do? I need to create a Gmail account. Similarly, if I want to send an email to someone and if I want to send an email to someone, if I want to use Azure, what do I need? I need to create the Azure account. How can we create the Azure account? Maybe we can go to portal.azure.com and we can create the Azure account. This is the portal for the Azure. We can go to portal.azure.com and we can create the Azure account. Maybe my Azure account could be bhupinder@outlook.com. It could be my personal account. Or let's say if I'm working for Facebook, then this could be my Azure account, bhupinder@facebook.com. So it could be a personal account, a test account, or it could be your corporate account, right? That is how first we need to create the Azure account. Now, just because you have created the Azure account does not mean that you would be able to create the resources. So whenever I say resources, whenever I use the word resources means I'm trying to say virtual machines, virtual network, database, containers, applications, Kubernetes, etc., 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 load balancer, etc., right? So these are the resources. So just because we have created the Azure account does not mean that we would be able to create the resources. In order to create the resources, we need something called a subscription, right? If I give you a very layman terms example, let's say you have purchased a mobile phone. Just because you have purchased a mobile phone, would you be able to make a phone call? Answer is no. In order to make phone calls, what do you need? You need a SIM card, right? Similarly, in order to create the resources, we need a subscription. Now, this subscription will also be your billing boundary. Whatever resources you will create inside the subscription, you are creating one machine or 5 virtual machines, you have to pay the bill, and that bill will be raised against this subscription. So we need to have a subscription. After subscription, we need to create a resource group. We need to create a resource group. Resource group is nothing but a logical container which contains the metadata of the resources. It is nothing but a logical container which contains the metadata of the resources. If I give you in layman terms, subscription is tenant dependent. Absolutely. It is tied with a particular tenant. It is tenant dependent. Absolutely. Right. Now, when I say metadata means, or what is resource group? If I give you in very, very layman terms, let's say when we used to go to schools, when we were in class 10 standard, the students of the 10 standard was divided into multiple sections. Class 10A, 10B, 10C, or maybe different schools might be following different nomenclature. Class 10 Jupiter, 10 Pluto, 10 Earth, right? So there can be different name of these sections. Similarly, resource group is nothing but a logical container which contains the metadata of the resources. So in order to create a resource group, you need to have a subscription. Without having a subscription, you cannot create a resource group. Subscription is mandatory. Then whenever you will be creating a resource group, you will have to give it a name let's say I give it a name RG1, resource group 1. You can give it a name. Then you will have to define the region, in which region you would like to create the resource group. So few minutes back, we discussed in physical architecture, we have got 60 plus regions. Out of these 60 plus regions, in which region you want to create it, you can define it here. Let's say I'm creating this in East US. So my resource group will be, right? And then after resource group, we can create the resources. Resources like virtual machine, virtual network, database, container, application, Kubernetes cluster, load balancer. These are all considered as resources. Maybe let's say I'm trying to create a virtual machine. In order to create resources, first of all, we need to have a subscription. Maybe subscription number 1. We need to have a resource group. Maybe we have got
Okay,
RG number 1.
Yes, sir, I have a question here.
Please.
Yeah, so like AWS platform. So here in the resource groups, here in the AWS platform, you know that we are creating the user account, then the groups are there, IAM. So all this in the resource group, we need to attach any kind of policies for the administrative privilege to get all the resource access in Azure like AWS.
Absolutely.
We need to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is something we can control with the help of RBAC.
Okay.
There is something called as RBAC. RBAC stands for role-based access control. So obviously,
Okay.
if you are deploying so many resources, if you are creating servers, network, you will have some identities who will be managing them.
Okay.
Maybe you will have some
Okay.
users, or you will have some groups who will be managing them.
Okay.
Now, who can control what? To whom you want to give what level of access? You have to define the access. Maybe I'm saying one person would be able to manage all the virtual machines. One person would be able to manage all the networks. 3% would be able to manage all the load balancers. One person can only read the virtual machine. They cannot make any write changes. So who will have what level of access can be controlled with the help of RBAC.
Okay.
Right?
It's a single role privilege, like administrative privilege, like that we can give.
There are
We
two
can
types.
specifically give.
In Azure,
Okay.
there are two types of role. One is the administrative type of role. Okay? This is also a sort of an administrative kind of a role. One is the role like global administrator, password administrator. Those roles we give at the directory level, at the Azure Active Directory level.
Okay.
Those
It's
roles are,
specific to the services. Services, I think.
yeah. The second one which you're talking about is basically specific, you can say, to the services, or maybe specifically we are giving it for multiple services as well.
Okay.
Hope that answers your query.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have got RG1. So we were trying to create a virtual machine. In order to create a resource, you need to have a subscription. You also need to have a resource group. Then finally, we can create the resource. Maybe what is the name? I would like to give it a name VM1. And in which region I would like to put it? Maybe let's say distribution. So that is how we would be able to create the resource. And finally, at the top of a subscription as well, we have got one hierarchy. There is something called as management group. There is something called as management group. What is the purpose of management group? With the help of management group, we can manage multiple subscriptions. We would be able to manage multiple subscriptions with the help of management group. So multiple subscriptions can be managed. Right? Second is, we can apply policies at scale. We can apply policies at scale with the help of this. So both things we would be able to. Right? Both things we would be able to.
This management group means the root privilege that the single root user can able to manage all those users that are created, the subscribed users, like that.
Purpose of management group is not to. Okay, so basically purpose of management group is to give the access at a resource level or at a subscription level, not to give the access at a user level. User level access usually we give with the help of Azure AD roles. Although there is one user which we called as account admin, that is into the deeper discussion. So there is one user with the name account admin. It can manage everything. It can manage all the subscriptions, It can manage all the Azure AD roles as well. So we have got, you can say, some super user kind of a user which can manage it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Right. So that is the technical gist I want to give you, that how the actual training is going to be. Now, let me quickly cover up the presentation as well, like what exactly is going to be in this training, like what all technical topics or what is the official curriculum of this training. So normally what cloud administrators would be able to do, Azure administrator manage the cloud services that span storage, networking, cloud compute capabilities with a deep understanding of each service. They would be able to take end user requests for new cloud applications and make recommendation on services. This role requires communicating and coordinating with vendors. Azure administrator use the portal, Azure portal. When they will become more proficient, they can do things with the help of PowerShell, or they can do things with the help of command line interface, scripting knowledge. Successful Azure administrators start this role with experience on operating system, virtualization, infrastructure, storage structures, and network. That is the scope of this particular course. What is the official content of this particular course? In this particular course, we have got 11 modules. Module number 1 will talk about identity. What is identity? How will you create the users? How will you create the groups? How will you enable multi-factor authentication? How will you enable security for the users? How can you create multiple directories? How can you assign roles to the users? So it will talk about all that part. If you have got the on-premise, in on-premise as well, if you have got some users in Windows Server Active Directory, how can you bring those users in cloud? So with the help of Azure AD Connect, Azure AD Connect is a tool with the help of which we would be able to sync the users from on-premise to cloud. Then we have got governance and compliance. So obviously, if you are deploying your infrastructure, you would like to govern that as well, right? You would like to have some sort of a compliance. You would like to put some sort of a policies. So how can we do all this one? How can you administer your Azure? How can you deploy things? We can do it from Azure portal. We can do it via PowerShell. We can do it via Cloud Shell. We can do it via CLI. We can do it via REST APIs. Multiple things by which we can administer things. Then module 4 will talk about networking. How can we create the network? How can we secure the network? How can we do subnetting? It talks about all of that. Module 5, inter-site connectivity, talks about how can we connect two different networks. There is something called as VNet peering, regional peering, global peering. There is something called as VNet to VNet connection. There is something called as express route. There is something called as site-to-site connection. So basically, idea is how can we connect multiple networks together. Module 6 will talk about traffic management. Maybe you have got multiple application servers. How will you distribute the traffic? We can distribute via load balancer, via traffic manager, via Azure application gateway. So multiple things we'll talk about. Module 7 will talk about storage. How can you store data in cloud? There is something called a storage account. Inside storage account, we can store a lot of data. Inside storage account, we can store 4 types of data. Blob storage, we have file shares, we have table storage, we have queue storage, multiple things we can store. Module 8 talks about how to create virtual machines, different features, different properties of the virtual machine, how to create Windows machine, Linux machines, how we would be able to create that. How can we capture the image of the machine? Module 9 talks about serverless computing. How can we create web apps? When the web apps will be created, from where will it get the compute? It will get the compute from the app service plan. What are Docker containers? So it will talk about all this. Module 10 talks about data protection.
So the serverless computing similar to the Lambda function like in AWS.
You can say that. You can compare this with Lambda. Module 10 talks about data protection. How can we take a backup? How can we create the site recovery? Right? So it talks about the data protection. And module 11 talks about monitoring. How can we monitor our VMs? How can we monitor our firewall? How can we monitor the load balancer? Different resources. How can we create alerts? How can we use security center? How can we use Azure Advisor? How can we use Network Watcher? So it will talk about different tools. So this will be the official content. So usually once you clear the AZ 104, you will become the Azure administrator. After that, if you want to dig more, after AZ 104, you can go with the AZ 400 and you will become DevOps engineer. Right? So this is the certification path for the issue. Then this is the contact detail of Amit. He is the right guy who would be able to help you out in order to enroll you for the training. So I think you can take a picture of it, maybe from your mobile, or you can just capture this particular screen. So it's the name, Amit is the name of the guy, and it's contact details. So it's a mobile number. So he's the right person who would be able to help you out in order to enroll you for the course. And-
Bhupender, can you please go back once that certificate
Yeah, absolutely.
slide?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bhupender. Thank you, Bhupender. Yes, I have to take a screenshot. Thank you.
Absolutely. So someone has a question, is it free or paid? So there is a small fee. I think Amit is the right guy who would be able to help you with this. Yeah, but there is a small fee for this course. Right? I have shared Amit's contact detail on chat as well. If any one of you have missed it, so I have shared it in chat as well. So maybe you can copy and paste it from the
So
chat.
Amit is not available right now.
I think
on
he
this
might
meeting?
be, he might not be. I'm not sure regarding this. So probably, I think he's not. I'm not sure regarding that part. But I think you would be able to reach him out, maybe via phone or maybe via text or maybe on WhatsApp as well, right?
So please, Bhupender, please tell us something about this course. What will be duration and
Okay.
things will be covered like that?
Yeah, I think official curriculum I already showed you. This is the official curriculum. This is the official course of this particular course. This will be covered. And see, now let me give you a hint on the duration part. So there are different sort of trainings that goes. Usually this training is for 4 days and 8 hours every day, right? So that becomes 32 hours. That is the total duration of this course, right? But most of you are working professionals, and I think it's very tough for all of you to spend 8 hours every day. So what we do, we break it down into weekdays, maybe 1 hour every day, or maybe into weekends, 2 hours each on Saturday as well as on Sunday. Right? So that is how it breaks down. When we cover like 8 hours every day, in this 8 hours, we get 32 hours, out of which we spend like 20-25 hours in technical discussion because we have some break timings, right? Lunch breaks, 15 minutes break. And after, on every day, we also give 1 hour to each and every participant for doing the labs as well. Whatever labs the trainer demonstrates, at the end of every day, we allow 45 minutes to 1 hour for the participants as well to do the lab. But when we will be doing the weekday sessions or when we will be doing the weekend session, right, it will be a 1 hour session or it will be a 2 hour session. So I hope all of you can understand it's not possible to give like 30 minutes or 20 minutes out of this 1 hour or 2 hours. So basically we would be able to save that time there, right? But if any one of you would like to go with the dedicated training for 4 days, it will be 8 hours and 32 hours. 8 hours
The
every day.
class will be the class will be the interactive session, right? Eventually, virtually.
Absolutely, it will be an interactive session. Like right now we are interacting. So I'll try to explain you the concept. At any point in time on that concept, if you come across any questions, you can ask your query then and there. Then whatever concept we will be discussing it theoretically, I will demonstrate you practically so that you will have a practical exposure. And then you can go back and you can do those labs with your own hands in your own Azure accounts, right?
Hello.
Okay. Yes.
For the weekday sessions, what time would it be?
I think for that you can reach out to Amit. He's the right guy who would be able to answer this. So usually we have 2 time frames. One is 5 to 7. You're saying for weekdays. So usually it's in morning and it's in evening. So maybe 8 to 9 as per Indian Standard Time, and one can be in the evening. Right?
Thank you.
You.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, after this meeting, you'll be sharing link to review again. There's all this regarding courses.
Sorry, you'll be needing which link?
After this meeting, you'll be sharing link on LinkedIn to review again this
Are you
session.
referring to the video?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be sharing this.
Okay.
Anshuman, yes, there will be some kind of a project work. I will be giving you labs which you need to do on your accounts. So I'll be giving you labs. That is something which you can consider as a project work. What about labs? Do we need to buy a subscription? Sushil, either you can buy a subscription or we can provide you a subscription as well. That would be available as well. That can become a part of a course fee as well. We can provide the subscription. What will be the fees? I think that can be answered by Amit. He's the right guy who takes care of the administration part. I take care of the technical. Okay, guys, I think all of you had some technical queries earlier. I would request all of you now, please go one by one and ask your technical queries.
Bhupender, go ahead, madam. Go ahead.
Is it subscription added for training itself? We will go further for training, and is it subscription will be added?
Yeah,
or is have to add?
It's a part of a training fee. So there are two types of training fee structure we have got. So one is with subscription and one is without subscription. So rest more details you can check with them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
Yeah.
Bhupender, what about certification?
So this course maps with
this
the this course maps with the 104 certification. After doing this training, you can easily apply for the certification and you can easily crack the certification as well. So many of our participants who go with this training, many of them likes to go with the certification as well, and they're easily able to crack the certificate. So we receive a lot of messages, lot of, I would say, appreciation messages and a lot of thanking emails that they were easily able to crack the certification. Because this course particularly maps with the AZ 104 certification.
I have a question. May I?
Yeah,
thank you. So this Azure Administrator, this module will cover Azure fundamentals also?
I would not say entirely, but yes, around 80-85%. In Azure Fundamental, we only talk about the names of the services. We do not discuss any services in detail. In this course, we talk about 80-85% of the services and we discuss those services in detail. So if you go with this course, easily you can crack this fundamental. Like that would be a piece of cake for you.
Okay, so if I don't know anything about this Azure Cloud, so you recommend that I need to go for the fundamentals first, then need to move to
not required,
right?
Not required. So
okay.
If you are from the technical background, you can easily catch it. Not required.
Catch. Okay, great.
Sir, any
so
job
generally, how many participants in a meeting, Bhupender?
So usually we have a batch size between 10 to 20. So it could be any number. Usually that's a batch size. And that's a manageable size. Any batch size less than 25, it's a manageable. So easily you would be able to put your queries and easily your queries will be answered as well.
Hello. We're
Yes.
going to discuss some of the Azure services like the SharePoint, Teams.
For SharePoint, we have a different course altogether. For Teams as well, there is a different course altogether. So this course does not cover those services.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Bhupender. Nice talking to you.
Right, the pleasure is all mine. Any other technical questions, any other technical queries, guys, before we, are there charges for the certification? So now a lot of discount is going on. Probably at a very discounted price, Mamta, you would be able to appear for the certificate at a very, very discounted price.
So I have a question, I have a technical question. So in AWS Azure Cloud, so we are setting up the VMs. So is there any possibility to set up the VMs in an auto scaling mode? Actually, if we have to set a threshold like a CPU memory disk. Depends upon that, the VM will be scaled up into, if one region is down, there's a possibility to switch to another region dynamically. In that setup is available in Azure.
Okay, so basically you have asked two questions, I think. So question number 1 is maybe VM number 1 CPU is rising up. Maybe it becomes 75% or more.
Yeah.
More instances should be added, right? So yes,
Yeah.
there is a service with the name as VMSS. That is what we call it as virtual machine scale set. With this, we can achieve this, right?
Okay.
Now your second question is if VM1, VM2, VM3, they are in East US, and let's say the East US region goes down. So can we switch them to maybe West US? Yes. For that, we need to use a service called as recovery service vault. And using recovery service vault, we need to create the Azure site recovery. Then we would be able to achieve. Possible. This is the name of the service, recovery service vault, and this is what we need to do from recovery service vault.
Recovery service means disaster recovery, like database.
Yeah, basically, yes, site recovery is something which we can call as BCDR, business continuity disaster recovery. We will be doing.
Okay. Okay. So in the case of database side also it is similar, like recovery. If database go down, we can switch to the database dynamically like this.
For database, for database, it depends whether you are going with a SQL database or whether you are going with a non-SQL database, right? NoSQL database, I should say. If you are going with a NoSQL database, there is something called as Cosmos DB. In Cosmos DB, basically it is a globally distributed database. It's a globally distributed database. Now, what is the benefit of globally distributed database? See, the benefit is, excuse me if I do any spelling mistake here, right? Now, the benefit is, now let's say you have created a database. Let me write it here. Maybe you have created a database with the name DB1 and you have put this database in East US. Now you can globally distribute this. You can deploy or you can replicate the same database to West US. You can replicate the same database to South India. You can replicate the same database to Australia East. Right? Now, let's say if your East US region goes down, is your database accessible?
It is not accessible. From
it is,
East US, it is not accessible.
From East US, it is not accessible. Reason being, East US is down. But can we access the data from West US or from South India?
Yes, exactly. Because read replicas we have enabled, right? So
that is how we
enable to access. Yeah. Okay.
Hope it answers your query.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So guys, actually this is how the session is going to be. So probably when we will be discussing technical things, a lot of queries will be coming to your mind, and we will try to discuss your queries and we will try to resolve your queries then and there. And if required, we will show you a practical demonstration as well for your technical things. So that is how the actual training session is going. So just wanted to give all of you a gist of how actual training is going to be. Right? So again, just for the last time, I'm displaying the MS number. You can reach out to Amit. You would be able to contact him for the enrollment of the particular course. We'll be starting very soon. So that is all from mine for today. If you have any technical questions, then we can go with it, or else we can call it a day.
So in Azure DevOps module, we will cover almost all the DevOps topics.
DevOps is not a part of this course.
Okay. So I'm just asking, we'll be covering almost the Kubernetes, the container registry, Elastic Container Registry, everything we will be covering.
Although container registry is not a part of this, but if you want, we can cover container registry and we can cover Kubernetes. Not.
Okay.
ACR and AKS, container registry and Kubernetes service, we can cover in this course. Although container registry is not a part of this course, but we can cover that. That is not a long topic, so that can be covered in some. Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are good. We do not have any further technical questions. So, all right, guys. Guys, I think one gentleman has a question regarding the high availability earlier, regarding VM1 and VM2. Do we have the gentleman now? Sir, can you hear me? It looks like gentleman is not around. So, all right, guys. So that is all from mine for today. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time. I really appreciate your patience, and thank you very much for giving your valuable time. I'm stopping the screen sharing, and I'll be stopping the recording as well. So have a good rest of the day. Take care. Stay safe. We will